Good evening. Welcome to APTN National News Weekend. I'm Sophie Claude Miller. A Winnipeg judge has sentenced one of the men found guilty of the manslaughter in the killing of Janine Fontaine in March 2017. Brittany Hobson's report.
She's not held back in any way. Her spirit is free and resting.
Melissa Stevenson has found some closure after hearing a judge sentence Christopher Brass to 15 years in prison for his role in the killing of Janine Fontaine. During her victim impact statement, Stevenson told the court her friend was like a butterfly, beautiful, small, and strong.
It's extremely important that we send a message that our lives of our Indigenous girls matter. She was important, she was loved, and we're happy with the sentencing today.
On Saturday, a jury found Brass and Jason Mayer guilty of manslaughter. Fontaine was found shot in the back of the head in her North End home in March 2017. Her home was then set on fire during what the Crown called a botched robbery. Court heard Mayer and Brass went to the home with a third man, Malcolm Mitchell, to collect a drug debt from Fontaine's boyfriend. When the three didn't find him there, they decided to rob Fontaine. Mitchell previously admitted to shooting Fontaine and pleaded guilty to second-degree murder. He was sentenced to life in prison. In court, Justice Gerald Chartier said, "A young woman, innocent of any wrongdoing, was killed for a $45 drug debt." Brass is already serving 2 life sentences for his role in the murders of Daniel DePaulo in Regina and Briar Parishnik Satie in Winnipeg. He will not be eligible for parole for 40 years. Stevenson had this message for him.
I would like to say that I hope he does find that true warrior role, the true warrior role. The warrior role that protects women, that stands beside women, that honors our traditional way of life.
Mayer is expected to be sentenced at a later date. Brittany Hobson, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
Prime Minister Justin Trudeau was in Loche, Saskatchewan earlier this week. He announced new funds for mental health services in the community. This comes 3 years after a young man shot and killed 4 people in the village. Brittany Hobson brings us more.
Prime Minister Justin Trudeau committed new funds for the Dene High School in Loche. The announcement comes a day after the 3rd anniversary of shootings at the school and a home that left 4 dead and 7 injured in the community north of Regina.
When I was here in 2016, I told this community, the students, teachers, parents, friends, that we were standing behind you, that all of Canada was supporting you as you healed. So when you asked for more help, our government listened and responded.
At an event in the school gymnasium, Trudeau told the community $2.2 million would be handed over the course of the next 5 years, a commitment that goes beyond the Liberals' current mandate. Trudeau says it will go toward cultural and language-based programs as well as mental health services for students. The Prime Minister was questioned why it took 3 years to get assistance.
There were immediate flowings of funds after the tragedy, but in terms of the right investments to build a resilient community, not just in response to a disaster, a tragedy, but for the medium and long term, we needed to make sure we're getting it right, and that's what we've been doing till today.
The Loche Mayor Robert St. Pierre says there is no plan put in place for the money at this time.
This is a fundamental step. This is a good leap forward for us. I mean, it's going to enable us to put some pieces together and formalize a better plan for our community and a healing journey.
He says the community will also be looking at creating more economic opportunities for residents.
Loche can use some investment. We don't have the dollars and infrastructure at this time, but if we have true investment and people willing to take a risk and take a chance in our community, they can thrive with the community alongside the partnerships that we've built.
Saskatchewan Premier Scott Moe was also in attendance. He committed $3 million to be put toward housing units for people working in health or education. The provincial government hopes this will help recruit more workers.
I think in fairness, we have been moving along with the community at a pace that is best for the community. Do we need to do more? Yes, we do need to do more as we move forward, and we need to work in conjunction and in partnership with our federal government. And what you saw here today was a further announcement with respect to mental health supports by the federal government.
A student who was underage at the time was sentenced to life in prison in May 2018. Brittany Hobson, APTN National News.
Members of the Atikamekw Nation filed a lawsuit to settle a land claim they had been negotiating without success for over 40 years, and the move made Quebec's legal history. Tom Fenario has the story.
Chief Christian Awashis drove 9 hours from Obidjawan First Nation to deliver a message to the province of Quebec. His people are tired of waiting.
40 ans de négociations qui ont mené à aucun projet de société jugé satisfaisant. Alors, à partir d'aujourd'hui, nous cessons toute négociation sur les négociations territoriales et nous amorçons une démarche de requête vers le titre.
Joined by elders and community members, Awashis kicked off a lawsuit in Quebec Superior Court demanding recognition of their ancestral land. The suit names both Quebec and Canada, who Awashis says have benefited greatly from Atikamekw lands.
100 ans de développement sur notre territoire, commencé par le barrage Boin qui a été créé en 1918, 19, 20. Aucune compensation pour notre communauté. Développement forestier qui a fait de la prospérité du Québec. Aucun retour pour notre communauté.
There's a large discrepancy between how much land Obidjawan First Nation currently has versus what they say is their ancestral territory. Indigenous Affairs currently lists the reserve as 947 hectares. Obidjawan First Nation says their entire territory encompasses more than 2.6 million hectares. Located at the end of a 150-kilometer logging road in the Morrissey region of Quebec, Obidjawan's remoteness means they depend on their land for much of their sustenance.
Nous autres, vu que c'est dans cet endroit que nous vivons depuis qu'on est tout petit, toujours dans la forêt.
Nadir Andre is an Inuit lawyer who is representing Obidjawan First Nation. He says that the lawsuit is a calculated risk, one that he's confident he'll win after the Supreme Court ruled in favor of the Sicoltan people last year.
The situation with Sicoltan is very similar with Obidjawan. It's semi-remote community, semi-nomad community, and they still use the land, they still have elders, they have their language, their way of life, so they have what it takes to actually go and prove their title.
Andre expects the case to take years to settle. Awashis says a few more years of waiting will be worth settling the matter once and for all.
Nous sommes convaincus qu'on va avoir gain de cause dans notre affirmation là, de notre existence.
Tom Fenario, APTN National News, Montreal.
Earlier this week, the Inuit received their apology for being relocated several times in the late 1940s and 50s. The Inuit group has already received a $5 million settlement, but this week the Indigenous Relations Minister, Caroline Bennett, was there to apologize in person. The Inuit were relocated from their home in Anandai Lake to Nirlutin Lake because the Canadian Armed Force had set up a radio station in Anandai Lake. They had returned on their own and they were relocated again, this time to Hennick Lake. By 1960, they had all been moved to Arviat. When they left, they were 80 people and more than half of them died.
We are sorry that we moved the Inuit from Anandai Lake. We are sorry that the Inuit suffered so immensely, experiencing indignity, starvation, and death as a result of our actions. We are sorry that you were not treated with the kindness, respect, and humanity that you deserved.
Since the 1980s, David Sir Couric has led the charge to receive his apology and compensation. He lived through those relocations and formed a group to get compensation this week, and he received earlier this week his apology. We reached him by phone in Arviat.
Last 2 days I was kind of nervous. I was fairly good, but a few times I have a tear here and there. The magical part of it for me is at the beginning when my brother, who has a very poor health, did the opening drum dance using my late father's song.
We are not going for a short break. We will have more of important news this week when we come back in a few minutes. Welcome back to National News Weekend. She may be the only Inuit person in the entire province of Quebec, but Marlene Hale has not let her stop from asking tough questions to Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. Tom Fenario has the story.
Marlene Hale, yeah.
Marlene Hale wasn't always politically active. She's a chef by trade. But things changed earlier this month when the RCMP raided an anti-pipeline camp on her territory.
I was just innocently making bannock and serving it, and which I am tomorrow, and all of a sudden the world just changes in a dime.
Having spent the last 7 years living in Montreal, Hale felt compelled to contribute to the anti-pipeline struggle back home, even though she lives thousands of kilometers away. So she's taken it upon herself to chase after the upper echelons of the federal government. On this day, Hale is hoping to get a word in with the Environment Minister, Catherine McKenna, who is in Montreal to make an announcement.
What is she doing to protect the environment as a minister? And for her to really take a second look at many things, like not even just oil, gas, but the coal that's going into the Talquah region in BC North.
Hale has already had success speaking to high-level government officials.
My name is Marlene Hale, and I am from the Wet'suwet'en Nation.
With the help of fellow activists, Hale was able to ask questions on behalf of the Wet'suwet'en hereditary chiefs and Justin Trudeau at a recent town hall in St. Hyacinthe, Quebec, where she pressed Trudeau on what she called a flawed consultation process with her people.
The Wet'suwet'en have demonstrated in the Supreme Court over and over again that the hereditary chiefs are the decision makers on our land. Yet you tout the agreements with federal band councils as a victory for this enormous project.
Trudeau's response agreed that the consultation process needs to be improved.
We need to support you in the creation of a process that will bring those voices together in a unified process so that we can seek consent for energy projects, hope to get it, hope to listen to concerns and improve projects as they are put forward. What we've seen this past week is the fact that the processes we have right now are not yet the right processes.
Hale says she appreciates that Trudeau took the time to respectfully answer her questions. And although she didn't get a chance to speak with Minister McKenna personally, one of the activists she is working with will attempt to read a statement on her behalf.
Suddenly everybody knows that I'm the only Wet'suwet'en in Quebec, but it's okay. I am just here to spread the message and spread the word and spread my culture, my people, and the fight that we have ahead of us.
Solidarité!
Tom Fenario, APTN National News, Montreal.
Universities are working to welcome Indigenous students and educate staff and students about culture and tradition. It is more common to see events such as feasts, powwow, drumming held on university campuses. Angel Moore reports from a campus in Halifax that these events are not just for show.
Mi'kmaq Midwinter Feast is a celebration of thanks to the Great Spirit for the blessings of life. The feast was held on the campus of Mount St. Vincent University. Kathleen Arsenal says these events are more than just entertainment.
There's a lot of stigma about fluff and how we only have these events as just kind of like a show. But behind the scenes, we do have a lot of issues that are being tackled.
Discussing pipelines, protecting the land and water are some concerns that all students share. She says events like these are an opportunity to welcome people and have discussions.
Not only are we bringing tradition into the university setting, we are also building awareness about issues such as the 1,200 missing Indigenous and murdered women.
Elder Joe Michael agrees. He says drumming, dancing, and singing are not just for show. It is sharing teachings and life experiences.
It's to understand our culture and to extend the generosity of our First Nations to different ethnic groups, you know.
Dancing is a way for Trevor Gould to share his culture. He says it's important to keep traditions alive, and one way is for universities to host events like this on campus.
These places have international people from all over the world coming to these schools, and it's important that they learn about the territory where they're in, the First Nations that live here, the Aboriginal, Indigenous.
Mount St. Vincent plans on building the relationship with the Indigenous community. Angel Moore, APTN National News, Halifax.
A new program in Saskatchewan is the first of its kind in the country and working to keep high-risk mothers and their newborns together. Amber Bernard has the story.
Sanctum 1.5 is a high-risk
Welcome back. A major announcement was made from the British Columbia government this week. They are announcing changes to the education system that will change the lives of Indigenous students in the province. APTN's Tina House has the story.
Here at the Capilano Littlest Ones School, students, First Nations leaders, and politicians gathered to announce a new 5-year agreement for First Nations students in BC.
We are here today to celebrate the signing of a new province-wide tripartite education agreement. It is a groundbreaking agreement. It is the first of its kind in Canada. It has been a long time coming.
The new $20 million agreement will invest funding into First Nations schools, including resources for First Nations language and culture, with technology a major component of that. It's to enhance learning opportunities for students. New policies will also see First Nations languages being offered in public schools. For National Chief Perry Bellegarde, he says he's excited to see the potential of First Nations young people.
And studies have shown that when you're fluent in your language, you're more successful at school and therefore more successful in life. And that's what this is about. So to the mun, you're going to have a good opportunity, and you are going to be doctors and lawyers and national chiefs too.
Grand Chief Ed John was one of the leaders who worked towards negotiating the agreement.
When we started this in the late 1980s, we had children graduating at 25% from high school. Now we're up around 70% graduation rates. We're not anywhere on par with graduation rates for the general public, but we're improving year by year by year.
He says when he was a student, things were much different then, and now kids have a huge opportunity to become successful in life.
I went to an Indian residential school up to grade 8, and then to a residential school per se in high school from grade 9 to grade 12. And the challenges were completely different. Children and youth now have completely different opportunities.
It influences provincial education policy in a different way and flows provincial funding to on-reserve schools in a different way.
Tina House, APTN National News, Vancouver.
I will now address myself to the Francophone audience here for a brief moment, but I will translate what has been said right after. J'aurai le plaisir de vous présenter le tout nouveau bulletin de nouvelles hebdomadaire de APTN dès cet été. Ce sera un honneur pour moi de partager les histoires qui nous concernent à travers le pays. Aussi, je vous invite de tout cœur à communiquer avec nous si vous avez des nouvelles. Et pour plus d'informations, consultez notre site Internet, soit le aptn.ca. I will have the pleasure to present APTN's new weekly French newscast that will begin this summer. It will sincerely be an honor for me to share the stories that throughout the country involves us. I will invite you to contact us if you have any news and visit our website, aptn.ca. Good night, and thank you very much for watching.